justice.
to justice. Obstruction to justice. Justice now. Well, hello, and welcome to another broadcast of Obstruction to Justice. I'm Ann Moles, and today we're just going to be in for a treat. As usual, we get to talk with some interesting people, and this couple is no exception. And you can just go ahead and chime in and hang in there. When it comes to obstruction of justice, we get a chance to talk about all kinds of things: politics, health, and wellness, and of course, business, my favorite. And they're going to share with us what they do with their nonprofit, Food for the Cure. Welcome, Andrew and Molly Fitzgerald.
It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. It's just, I tell you, let me just kind of just put the little pin in the balloon. How did I meet you guys? You guys have been doing this work for a few years now, and not to go unnoticed. The Kansas City community has noticed you, and I saw you on a newsreel, and I wasn't sure which newsreel it was, whether it was one of the, local networks, but it was one of my favorite newsreels because it focuses on what Kansas City's doing, flatlands. Huh? So I saw you on that broadcast, and it was just inspiring, and also very informative, but it's sharing what it is that I think we all kind of need to get into, especially in these days and times. Big blessings to you, Dr. Anthony Clark. Thanks for the shout out. Dr. Clark is just a great guy in the Lord, and he's a pretty healthy guy too. So he's into health and fitness and wellness and stuff too. I can tell. You could When you meet him, you'll see why. But yeah, thank you so much for joining and hanging out. Now, where do we get started? Because I heard a little nugget. I heard a little nugget from you, Molly,
Yes.
about the about how and why, huh? Food for the cure. Well, before, let me just talk to you, Andrew, and ask you, why food for the cure?
Well, it all started um, in early 2016. My mom, unfortunately, came down with cancer, bile duct cancer to be specific. And at that point in time, there really wasn't a cure for that type of cancer or anything that it could really do other than extend her life. But at that time, I was into organic stuff.
Mhm.
I was like, hey, mom, you really should be eating this kind of food. That way, you're taking this chemo. If you start eating organic, hopefully, that would offset the chemicals, because chemo's chemicals, and the unfortunate reality is chemo attacks every cell of your body.
It does. Yeah, it
So,
does.
but the unfortunate reality was you're seeing a doctor, you're on chemo, the bills just pile up,
Mm.
and organic food, unfortunately, is quite more expensive than your conventional foods. So
Mhm.
so that was hard, So, but in the back of my mind, I was always thinking if there was a nonprofit that would help people in her situation. So it's
Mhm.
always been in the back of my mind. And unfortunately, she passed away December 11th of 2016.
Mm.
And at that point, I was in a very dark place. So it's in the back of my mind, but the reality was I was going through a crazy roller coaster experience of all the things in life just change so fast.
Mhm.
And then eventually things got better. I met Molly, and I basically I never forgot that idea of mine in the back of my head. I didn't have quite the exact name for it, but I knew what I wanted. So when I moved to Kansas City, I got on a app called Nextdoor,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, so I don't know anybody, so I was shouting out there. Is there anybody with the same kind of ideals like me for organic and helping cancer patients? And then I got a few responses. Oh, that's a great idea, but that's where they dropped it. Because everybody's all for a great idea, but when it comes down to actually getting things done,
Yeah.
fortunate that it takes a little time and stuff. But luckily, I found two other people, and they're on our board today. To this day,
Cool.
it it just kind of blossomed in a slow way, but anything new is always hard to get off the ground.
It is. It is. And so what I'm hearing is that the inspiration came from a need, and that's kind of what it, your mom must have been a really, really great person, I'm sure, because look at you,
Oh yeah,
the fact that she inspired to give to others, right? Not just for herself, but also for other people too. This legacies and heritages, they just keep on giving, right? So you had the heart to pick it up and say, look, my mom needs, so I'd like to do something about this, right? I commend you for that. And really, when you said nonprofit, I'm just going to kind of jump in a little bit when it comes to business efforts. Nonprofit, guys, doesn't mean that there's no profit. And I'm saying this out there, nonprofit, as you heard Andrew mention, it's about people coming together and rolling up their sleeves and making something happen to where it gives back without without the cost, right? Or, even maybe not so much of a big cost. Donations, volunteers. That's kind of what nonprofit, when we hear the word nonprofit, it doesn't mean that we don't and there aren't resources that are required, right?
right,
And so somebody also, when you said, look, you reached out, kind of did a next door, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And someone said, hey, yeah, good idea, and they drop it. Well, because anything worth doing is a challenge. Anything worth having is a challenge, especially when you're talking about business and helping people and doing things to develop and grow anything. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
right.
So it's not. And that's, we talk about business on obstruction to justice quite a bit. Uh, Being a business owner myself, I have a couple of challenges and I say challenges, things that I do and I've been working with them to make them go. But this food for the cure came from the heart. That's that's really what I'm hearing, and that's really what's required when you're looking to do something for a community as a nonprofit organization or even as a for-profit. But don't think that when we hear nonprofit world, Kansas City, right? We're here, and these guys are sharing with you what's going on, that volunteers aren't needed because they are,
Oh yes,
and
and
resources are needed, donations are needed. And that's something that we need to reiterate. So Molly, now I think I'm ready for that wonderful nugget that you shared a little bit earlier. Tell us how
So
you
Andrew has such a passion for certain topics that it got to the point where I said, "You need a hobby. You need something to do," because he actually he's disabled and cannot work,
Hmm.
and so I said, "You need to do something with your time." And he worked up this graphic on his shirt, and I said,
Ah.
well, there you go. Let's lead with that. And then when I come home from work, he's already put a message out on next door and was like, "Hey, we have a meeting this weekend at around the corner. and he went to work and started the brainstorming of it. So
Wowzer. And that's I'm hearing something else too, guys, because what they say, and this is, I'm kind of jumping in, I'm putting on my business hat here for a minute because we do have a business audience. When you're looking to start a new endeavor, a business, a for profit business, a non for profit business, it's best to have your people, everyone that's in your circle, kind of in your corner too,
yeah,
right? So for you, Molly, to say, hey, I'm supporting, I'm in, supporting you, what it is that you're envisioning here.
mhm,
Um, and even still, okay, Andrew, I didn't know. Well, we had chatted a bit too, but someone else who is disabled, here's another person who is giving back and wanting to give back. And Molly, your heart to say, okay, well, we're going to do this and I'm going to support you in this. Let's get a hobby. Just because we are physically not able to do certain things. And guys, we're talking about gardening here.
yes.
Huh? Food for the cure is it's gardening. It's where they grow organic food. Did you hear what Andrew was sharing? So him being physically not able to do a lot of what being disabled, gardening, you're digging, you're crawling, you're bending, you're
Pulling
stooping, you're
weeds.
picking, you're lifting,
Hmm.
you're doing all of that.
Well, for me, I'm especially we talk about volunteers, and thank God this year because we doubled our space. But they do the majority of all the hard work. I'm there with my chair, and if they have questions or any concerns or anything, and I kind of point and sit, kind of being the foreman, if you will. But and in the beginning, we only had three people. That was one
That was
being
including me.
including my wife that were volunteers. So
Mhm.
it was really hard for me because I can't get down. I got a bad
Mhm.
back. I can only lift 10 pounds and no bending. So I really wanted to get in there and get it done because I'm like, oh, if I was in a perfect health condition, I would just be out in the garden all day,
Mhm.
and do
It
it
is
myself.
fun.
But when you're when you have a disability, it's just hard to, especially when you're doing a nonprofit, to get people to realize that you do need volunteers and that we do really appreciate everything that gets done. And I think especially with since we're doing with cancer, I think there's this idea that people with cancer get all the support they need.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
if anything, I've seen that they really kind of get pushed in the back in some cases, or they're just afraid to ask for help.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and one thing about what you had mentioned, your mom being in need of was the nutrition and cancer patients when you're dealing with chemotherapy and the radiation treatments and things of that nature, it does tear you down. So what builds you up, of course, is the immune system. And what Food for the Cure does is that organic food, that organic food is available and people are able to you're able to bless people. Okay, so I
Yeah.
do want to go back. Don't despise small beginnings. Huh? We read that, and yeah, I let the cat out of the bag. Everyone knows I'm a Christian, right? And the main thing that we go to when it comes to doing anything is the word of God, as far as information, what to do, God. How do we do this? Well, to not be discouraged because it was only 3 people. I think that, and I was thinking about this, probably the past couple of weeks, um, how the media just people think that things are just supposed to be big, and if you're not doing it big and you know uh, crowds of people and bulldozers and a whole field of land and all of that, if you're not doing it big, then you're not doing it. But the word says, don't despise small beginnings, because that right there is the seed of faith. And the mustard seed is the smallest seed in the herb kingdom. So your mustard seed, you had three mustard seeds out there when you first got started, and you had the meeting, but then now it's still going, and it's still growing because it got my attention. When it comes to food, we had chatted a little bit, Andrew. Yes, the organic food is super important for the cancer patient, and we're going to dive in a little bit when we get out there to your website. But there are also food deserts, food deserts, fresh fruits and vegetable deserts in communities where there's no grocery store within a mile or whatever where people live.
Mhm.
And maybe even more than a mile, there's no grocery store, so a person can't, if they don't have transportation, they can't just walk to the grocery store, right? So the food deserts are there, and fresh fruits and vegetables are important for all for all people, especially young people, right? So to grow up, and you want them to be healthy and everything. Uh, so the food deserts are there, and we talked about how important it would be, to educate people about how to maybe do the gardening, a bucket garden or something. We work
Mhm.
with another nonprofit organization that where we're going to actually hopefully grow and partner with you. So the people that we have, we're going to come and roll up our sleeves and volunteer with that. But it is important to know that fresh fruits and vegetables are important to any diet. I think that with the fast food, young people, come on, I know it might taste great, right? But
They're thinking of the convenience of it,
Well,
mhm,
not
and
the
the
nutritional.
and unfortunately, where how people certain people, if you're on such a tight budget, it's
mhm,
so much affordable for them to buy McDonald's and all these other things. But in reality, if they just spent a little extra on the healthier foods, you would be more nourished as a whole person.
definitely more nourished. Growing up, the food was a little bit different too. So why, as far as the seed was different, because I'm a little older than you guys, the seed was different, and the food was different in that it, when I was a kid, there wasn't genetically modified food. The GMOs weren't there. Um, Not that we're aware of. I know GMOs have probably been around for at least 20, 30 years to where they're um, working with the seed, but the soil itself, and the seed was a seed that produced. It had a seed in it.
Mhm.
Lots of foods that we eat don't even have seeds. They're seed, and then that's it. So the seed, there's no seed in it, like the seedless watermelon.
Hmm.
When we were kids, we spit seeds. That was it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you're looking at a seedless watermelon, and you're like, "Wow, how did you do that?" And I think the question also is why. But why organic? Can you share with us?
Uh, as far as like organic food, like the whole process, there's just all so much in organics itself. But first thing is, if you go to the store, it's USDA certified if you buy it like that. Now, as far as like when you're farming, it's all about not just growing it from seed and you're done. It's about helping the land, nourishing the soil, and not using all these harsh chemicals and sprays that unfortunately conventional foods usually use.
Mhm,
And when you're doing it our way, not only does the food grow well, there's been studies that show that the nutrition is there's more nutrition in it as well, as far as, because what happens is the soil's healthy
mhm,
and you have all the bacteria that's supposed to be there. You have the bugs, you have the worms, and everything's just a perfect ecosystem where the bacteria helps the plant absorb nutrition. So
Mhm.
they work together, and it's just the perfect ecosystem. And the unfortunate reality is with conventional, the USDA calls it dead soil. When you're using
Mm.
all these sprays and you're basically killing the soil, there's no life, there's no bacteria, the worms are gone. You're just unfortunately just destroying all your land.
Mm.
And if for some reason our system's gone to that, and I wish people would go back to the old ways, but
Mhm.
for some reason it's like ingrained that we have to produce as absolutely much as possible. But in some studies, organic can be just as well or sometimes better as far as yields. So
Mhm.
kind
Mhm.
of amazes me, and it's just the people say that it's more expensive to do organic, and yes, there's certain avids where since you're not using the sprays, you do have the crop loss, but at the end of the day, you're not buying all these different chemicals, and it's just it's a better way to be with nature, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So.
For sure, for sure. So organic is really going back to the old way of taking care of the soil and growing food. Whereas now we have the big farm, big pharma
Mhm.
pharmaceuticals that get into cahoots with the big farms.
Hmm.
I don't know. The tech guy, the biggest one of the biggest tech guys in the country in the world is buying up all the farmland. Why does a tech guy need farmland? Now, what is it about Monsanto that is dealing with seeds, and they, just the commercial farming
Hmm.
is just it really for the sake to me of profit more so than.
Oh, it's really it's kind of scary how things work out with the if unfortunately there's people that are out there that are so consumed by just gathering as much wealth as possible, and like when you said Monsanto, it's like that's like the worst company on the planet. Unfortunately, it's
Mhm,
not just because maybe they initially thought they were going to do good, but a lot of these GMOs are designed for
mhm,
one thing and one thing only, and they're designed to uh, basically not be killed by uh, what's it called? The spray, the
Roundup.
Roundup,
roundup.
right?
Mhm,
And
mm,
even the World Health Organization says that's a carcinogen.
mhm,
So there's a just like if you go over to uh, Europe, they don't have GMOs. They do not. They don't use them.
mhm,
It's like the plague.
mhm,
And it just blows my mind that these certain things are allowed in the U.S. because they're lobbied for. They're there's sufficient studies for them. And the
mhm,
reality is the FDA doesn't do these studies. They just review the data. They're
mm,
not doing the study. They just do the review. So it's really interesting how things work. And with the seeds, they sell the farmer the seeds, then they sell them the chemicals, and the farmer grows the plant, but the farmer can't gather those seeds for himself. He has to destroy those seeds and
mm,
buy new seeds. So it's a vicious cycle of this farmer just getting more expenses over more expenses over more expenses. And it's
mhm,
just unfortunate where if they did organic, they could gather their seeds without worrying about Monsanto coming to sue you or,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had there was a movie that was on one of the streaming formats, and it was talking about how the one of the organic farmers were being squeezed out by the big farming organizations, and they were suing the organic farmer about something about how it was contaminating or whatever, or if there was contaminant because they would test the organic soil, and if they found contaminant in it, then it could no longer be called organic. And there's really, I would say, real true conspiracies because people are greedy,
Hmm.
Now, and what you had mentioned too, Molly, as far as convenience.
Hmm.
So, people are trying to work and they're so bogged down with life. By the time the household in the two wage earning household or the single wage earning household with a single parent and multiple dependents, by the time you get through working and you get home, what is it? But
Yeah.
there's and I want to just kind of throw some things out there. I want to ask too, what do you grow? What do you grow? What do you focus on as far as growing your food, your
Well,
organic food?
this year we actually took a survey towards the end of last year, and we asked the cancer patients on our list, what do you want us to grow? What do you want to eat?
Mm,
Because the first year we did it last year, we grew just what the board decided. We didn't
mm,
really ask
Well, we kind of grew a variety
a
of lettuce,
variety, but
and the funny thing was we grew a wonderful plant in
uh, Swiss chard.
Swiss chard.
mm.
It was rainbow Swiss chard. It was gorgeous.
It was wonderful.
It
Beautiful
grew.
crop.
You could cut it and it would grow back, and it was amazing. But we only literally had one person that would take it, and they were using it to juice it, which was fine.
Mhm.
But I just wish more people could eat it or would try it or eat it. Because one thing I am finding out is a lot of people are very cautious of new foods, so we
Mm.
try to avoid some of the like the Chinese varieties and this and that. But certain foods, we just this for especially for like I said, the beginning of this for this year, we asked and we did sweet potatoes, we did
Mm.
Brussels sprouts,
Yeah, those are
we did
healthy.
lettuce and
Tomatoes.
tomato. Well, we always do tomatoes. Tomatoes are always people love tomatoes. So.
We
Mhm.
did a variety of peppers, banana peppers, bell peppers, jalapenos,
Oh.
serranos. We also did eggplant.
Mhm.
We attempted onion, but that kind of failed. Uh,
Unfortunately, the ground we're in is kind of clayy, so
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
a variety of bush beans. We did also summer squash,
Okay.
nut squash.
yeah, a
Uh,
little variety.
we
It was yellow crook for the summer
Yes.
squash,
Mhm.
and then the winter squash was a variety between spaghetti and butternut.
Oh yeah. And see, that spaghetti squash and butternut squash is very expensive in the stores.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it adds up.
All of what you just mentioned, all of the fruits and the vegetables that you just mentioned are very expensive in the stores.
Yes.
People should know that. But plus people do, but I think back to a little bit of what convenience is like. People are so used to the salt and the sugar and the
Mhm.
processed food to where you have to force yourself to eat salad whether yeah, if it's good for you and you should eat it, but it's like you have to force yourself to eat healthy. And even in the food prep, those butternut squashes, you can cut them in half and bake them,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're just delicious. Just,
Mm-hmm.
you could use it like a sweet potato. That juicing lettuce. So I don't know. Maybe, this is just kind of moving forward, coming up when you do make the decision too of what to grow. Just come up with some recipes too, and
Well,
how.
that was another thing is we've actually so since the Flatland KC thing
Hmm.
actually we actually gained two cancer patients from that. So that was a good thing. And
Yeah.
what was interesting about you saying the recipes is one person's like, I like what you're growing, but she was like, I just don't cook, and so it's kind of hard to figure out what to make. So we're like, okay, we'll definitely put that on the list of things that we can actually do. That way, when we know we'll grow stuff, we'll just kind of, especially maybe eventually put it on the website or somewhere easy, or maybe make a little pamphlet that has
Hmm.
little ideas. But yeah, it's especially
There's
when you
there's
don't know how to cook or you just don't know how the
Yeah.
recipes. It's kind of mind-boggling. What
yeah.
what do you do with this vegetable?
What do you do with it? And there's so much room for growth too. You guys have been on the mission field doing this, and that's kind of how businesses go. You evolve into what makes sense, and what can we do. So that's just another something down the line. Now, let me catch my thought too. So back in the day, my grandmother, it looks like we had cabbage every day. That green cabbage, big
Mhm.
green heads of cabbage every day. Now, I don't know as far as organic and all of that. It's thin leaved. I mean, it's something that a pesticide could really get into, and so it might not be a bad idea to eat that cabbage that's organic. But even with that, the idea of eating and cooking the food that doesn't take a long time to cook,
Yes.
and it's a good healthy staple, because you could eat some cabbage and throw a couple of potatoes in there, and you have some cornbread, and wow, we
Yeah.
You got yourself a meal. Yeah.
yeah, we ate really well, and plus the beans and things. So you guys are on it when it comes to the that delicious food that you're growing. I do want to go out here. I want to share your website. I just dig that logo. It looks really good. That logo that you came up with there,
Yeah.
Andrew.
I like it.
It's really cool.
It's pretty simple, but it's eye catching.
It is, people, because you want to lean in to see the vegetables. Oh, I know what vegetable that is, and
Mhm.
Hmm.
it's kind of a conversation starter too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead, and I'm going to share your website here. Yeah. So the website, guys, is foodforthecure.org. That's the website for all the podcasters that listen in to the Obstruction to Justice program, foodforthecure.org. And it's all spelled out in words. And you go out here to the website, and it has that cool logo that I was just raving about. Food for the Cure, helping others one bite at a time. So that is definitely a slogan for you. Definitely a slogan. And grow stronger than cancer. Yeah. So when Andrew, yeah, thank you so much for starting this and in doing this, and we're not wrapping it up. We still have
Oh,
some time here, but I do
yeah.
want to share. Yeah, thank you. Because yes, it is hard. It's difficult to do anything, especially stepping out on faith, and especially when you have your own physical challenges too. And the heartbreak of losing your mom to this deadly disease. But even the cancer, if we could just eat better starting out, uh, I think that will help us to fight these diseases, even though it seems that things are kind of stacked against us, and what we live through in our society. Individually, they
Yeah.
go into court and say individually this does not cause cancer, right? But
Hmm.
because of so much that the body has to endure, it does. So
Oh yeah.
says, welcome, Food for the Cure, together we can. And guys, definitely together we can. And if you want to check out that interview that we were sharing, that where I had uh, first been was introduced to Food for the Cure, that Flatland interview is out here. They have it posted on the website as well. And yes, it is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it is located here in the greater Kansas City, Missouri area. It has programs. And now, this picture here,
Hmm.
is this the food that you guys grew?
Yes, that was from last year,
Yeah,
our
that was the
first
first
year.
year.
And we had carrots, cucumbers last year, which
Hmm.
we did not do this year, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, the carrots look pretty dwindly because they, with only three people that were doing the weeds and stuff, our first year got a little too weedy. So
Hmm.
the carrots got overtaken, and they looked like they were gonna. They started once we started weeding. they grew great. The tops were huge, and then we went to pull them, and they were just so
Yeah.
tiny.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
was pencils.
But yeah,
Mhm. Now, for those that can see this picture, I wanted to just kind of share too. Traveling overseas, uh, it is totally different when it comes to in organic food and what you should select. Don't expect, guys, organic vegetables to look um, super colorful and
Hmm.
where there are no imperfections
right.
and
That's one. That's the number one problem with our culture is people expect perfection, and when it comes to it, it's just so wrong. I mean, and I know we're like trained to be that way from the first day we go into a grocery store. Everything's just gorgeous and perfect.
Mhm.
It, it's just unfortunate, but yeah, when it definitely comes to organic, you're gonna have imperfections. You're gonna have the little bug bites here and there. It's gonna look, slightly different, but honestly, especially like when it comes to tomatoes, organic tastes so much better. It just
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like we didn't watch one of the butternut squashes this year, and it started growing on both sides of the fence that we put up. So in order to get it out, we had to snip the fence.
Uh-huh. Oh,
So
yeah. So looking at these vegetables, these are the vegetables that your team grew.
mhm.
Now, and like I said, they to me they look delicious. They look like okay, they do look homegrown. Yeah. So they look like they're gonna do something for me though. Those green peppers and the cucumbers and all of that. That just looks really good. Yeah. So that also here it has your donation buttons, and if you do your shopping on Amazon, they have a button here where you can actually uh, use the smile at Amazon. It's a smile. Amazon Smile is where when you do purchase from Amazon, Amazon will also donate to a nonprofit. So that's what you're into. You can also click on that link. They have a link there that will give you information about their them signing up with Amazon Smile. Yeah, donate today. That's out there too. Volunteer. I want to click on this. Okay, that volunteer link. If you want to volunteer, go out there and sign up. Put your information in, and they will
Hmm.
definitely get back with you
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
I try to get it back to them the same day, at least the second. At least get you back to the at least by the next day,
Mhm.
unless something crazy is going on. But most of the time, it's in a day or so. But
Mhm.
yeah. And it definitely helps when we get people that are geared to want to do something and help. I mean, even the smallest things help tremendously. It's
Mhm.
and you don't need to know gardening. I get this all the time, like,
yeah.
oh, I don't really know how to garden, but I want to help. I'm like, that's totally fine. We'll show you how to do it. Just you'll learn as you go, and that's what we've been doing is learning as we're going.
Mhm.
It's definitely been an experience to to learn, and as we get volunteers, we learn from them and they learn from us, and it's awesome.
Mhm. Mhm. Super. Yeah, so the mission statement is out there as well. Click on the why link and it will take you to the story where Andrew's mom is out there and it shows her beautiful picture as well. So that is very nice. Very nice. Um, Partnerships, things of that nature. You want to hang out and partner with this team, volunteer. One thing about the Habitat for Humanity, that's an organization that I think Kansas Cityans are familiar with
Hmm.
in that it builds housing. There are housing projects around in Kansas City and builds homes for greater Kansas Cityans. Well, they're out there, but this is another opportunity to do some volunteer work. Now, you have corporations, companies that want to go out and do some volunteer work. And so they'll contact organizations like Habitat for Humanity. But I will encourage all businesses to diversify, because I think volunteering is important in more than one way. I know Habitat is kind of they're big, so a lot of times they'll people or companies or organizations will want to partner with them because they are a larger non for profit. Um, the other nonprofit organizations where their donation and giving, that's fine. But I would say, just to encourage businesses and local businesses to volunteer and partner with an organization like here, Food for the Cure, because it is local, and your dollars, where your dollars are. They're going to a local non for profit, but then the food goes to local cancer patients. Tell us about that. Uh, Tell us about how you distribute
Okay.
to.
Well,
Mhm,
as of right now, we're we're as you say, nothing's too small, but we're
Nope.
really small, and we started out with word of mouth. So if someone knew a cancer patient, they would say, "Hey, I know Food for the Cure. They give food," and so they would email me. We would take their name, address, cell phone number, and then when something's ready to be picked at the garden, we will text them. I'll say, "Hey, I have 2 heads of lettuce, 7 tomatoes, blah blah blah," and I'll say, "Would you like some?" And they'll reply back, and then we'll gather what we need for that day, and then me and my wife will go deliver, and we'll have it in a bag with a little thing saying, "This is a donation Food for the Cure. It's come directly from the garden. Make sure you wash it, and then before you prepare it, and
Mhm.
then we'll go to their house and I'll hand it to them. And of course, we wear masks, all that good stuff. We got to be safe.
For sure. So it doesn't sound like it's a difficult process
No,
to, you have to give status of your income and how much your mortgage or rent
no.
is, and
One
you
one
know.
thing one thing I wanted to take out of the equation
Mhm,
is is it didn't matter how much money you made, because in
mhm,
reality, especially doing this now, there's a lot of people that fall in terrible gaps because they make just a little too much money to get the support they really need.
mhm,
And most places don't take into account what kind of debt you're in or anything other than that. And it's just so sad to see someone in such dire straits because they can't get the support they need. And I've been told many times that thank God you're here, and without you I wouldn't have food, and
mhm,
it's just heart wrenching.
mhm,
And one thing eventually that I want to get done for Food of the Care is, as of right now, how we work with the food is we grow our food, and but at someday I want to have an actual food pantry that's set up like an actual grocery store where we have food year round, because as of right now we only can grow in from the spring to the fall.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I just want to eventually have that capacity for year round food.
Okay. That's not an unrealistic goal, and I think it's definitely necessary. Another organization that we have local here in Kansas City, and they probably have them in other places, but harvesters.
hmm
Now, harvesters, everyone's familiar. If you're from Kansas City, you're familiar with harvesters. They are the guys that have the big trucks and they do the big food donations, and they're out there, maybe once a month. There are different places where you can pull up and just answer a couple of questions or whatever. I think there are a couple of questions, and they ask you your income, whether it's below a certain amount of money or whatever. And if it is, then I'm sure people say. If it isn't, I'm sure people say it is so that they can, because like you say, there are times when people just don't have, because of their living arrangements. But I do want
Well,
to say,
yeah,
yeah, about harvesters is that they don't donate organic, right? It's
they get a limited supply of organic,
there you
fortunately.
go. Okay.
So it's now one of our things we've talked with the harvesters, but in our current state, we need to actually have that the building that I was talking about
Mhm. Mhm.
set up, and then we can start getting certain things from them
Mhm.
because they have certain criteria that you have to meet before they will actually give you food for
Okay,
donation.
well that's a goal, guys. This
Hmm.
company, this nonprofit organization that runs off volunteer uh, effort, they're they're wanting to get a building. So this is a big shout out to the Greater Kansas City area. This is a nonprofit organization, Food for the Cure, that grows organic food for cancer patients and patients that need that type of food so that they can get well, so that their body isn't ingesting more cancer causing
Mm-hmm.
agents.
Yep.
Okay, so their bodies will grow stronger and their immune system will be better by eating organic food. So, if there are any contractors out there, any any owners, business owners that would have a building, mm, that may satisfy the need, we're going to put a shout out. Contact Food for the Cure. Sometimes it's not about always the profit. I think that the you guys are folks are making profit. I know the taxes in Jackson County are outrageous, all that. Everybody's got problems, right? But if we all come together, then this would be a big help to the communities of the greater Kansas City, Missouri area. So they're looking to get a building. So anyone that can get out there and help with that building effort, if they know of real estate that's available, I say contact Andrew and Molly Fitzgerald so that they can grow in that area. That's not a hard goal, is the point. Uh, there are churches that have, there's big mega churches out there. So some the churches that have overflow and extra buildings and places now they're not even using because, of COVID or whatever the case is. I say that this would be a great opportunity to pull together as a community to move forward in that next goal, part of the goal, because they've been doing this, what, since 2016. So 16, 17,
Well,
18,
we
19,
started,
20.
technically we started in it was it was like we kind of got the idea in 2018.
Mhm.
This is when I finally moved over. I lived in I originally lived in Hannibal, Missouri,
Mhm.
and I was taking care of my mom at the time and stuff.
Sure.
And one thing I've learned is things happen for a reason, and if it wasn't for my back problem, I wouldn't have been able to be with my mom and take care of her because the fortunate reality is we're geared to make money and to pay
Mhm.
bills and
Yeah.
take care of ourselves, but the whole retrospect was my suffering allowed me to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
It's allowing me to take the little bit of time that I have spare, spare time on my hands, and put that towards the good, you know,
I
and
do.
try to dwell on my back pain and all this other stuff, because
Mhm.
life's life, and we all have our own problems and our own situations. But if we can, it's a good feeling to give back and help.
Well, it's life. That's good brotherhood and sisterhood. It's good community, I believe, when we can not be so into our own selfish, needs and wants and desires and all that, and yet persevere through to think about others who are in need as well. So, yeah, even 2016, I don't think of that as an unrealistic number because I'm putting my business cap on here again. It does take a while to develop the concept, mm,
Mhm.
to develop the thought. Why will this work? To develop the concept about it, and then from there to get it on paper. So
Mhm.
all of like what you said, that's still not an unrealistic year. I'll give it the 2016 because your mom went through this, right? She went
Yeah.
through this, and this was a need that she had. So the concept was reinforced because of the need that a loved one had. Uh, so that's kind of what business is all about, believe it or not, guys. Everybody out there, business is about satisfying a need. So you're going to do great business if you satisfy a popular need, right? And what need is there besides water that we need? We need food, and we need good food. And here is a couple that has worked and has built the concept and is already working through the processes of a future goal. It's short term goals. We talk about that in business, short term goals and long term goals. Short term, this is really in the next 3 years, you should be in a facility and maybe even more than one. I know Catholic Charities is another one out there that has a food pantry. And if, they get their donations and everything, uh, from wherever support they get theirs from the church and other donors. I think there was a $2 million donation within the past couple of years that Catholic, maybe this past year, that Catholic Charities received. And so there are companies out there that can do. And as far as donations, when you're talking about charitable donations, organizations, there are organizations that are kind of required to do that, so for tax purposes.
Mhm.
So big companies, okay, companies, whatever, if you're needing a tax donation break here, then definitely contact Food for the Cure. That's Andrew Fitzgerald and his wife Molly that are working with that team. Definitely volunteer. That's another thing. So what have I missed? Okay, I talked about. Let me go back out here. I talked about
We do have a
importance.
blog in the more section,
Okay.
Grow Stronger blog. Yeah, and that I I kind of slightly I should put more effort into it, but if I think of it, I do little stories and kind of a progress report on the garden. But this has been a busy year, and so it's been kind of pushed to the side, unfortunately. But this is you can sign up for it and you'll get an email when I put out a new story. But yeah, it just kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing at Food for the Cure.
Okay, I like it. I see, and there's some past articles here that
Hmm.
are great information for people who may want to do some more research too. Of course, yeah, super.
Yep.
I see the garden, the pictures out here of the food, the volunteers out here working hard. So when do you guys get back to growing food?
So it'll be this coming spring.
Mark.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All right. Now, before the spring comes, volunteer just because they said spring, get your name on the list to volunteer now, guys, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So get your name on the list to volunteer now because, like he had mentioned before, there are meetings that are involved, and you can talk about where you would best fit in and everything and working in the garden. So, uh, and that's another reason why they were wanting the building because then they could provide the food year round.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
uh,
not just there, but like if we get a building and we have
mhm.
like an actual kitchen that would be checked out by the health codes and all that stuff, we could actually preserve food, and that way we can give away salsa or pasta sauce and stuff like
Ah,
stuff things we can make with the food.
come on, see how it grows and develops. Now, so I'm hearing that would be an opportunity for some canning of the food,
Yeah.
right? Oh, wow. Cha-cha and salsa. I mean, it's been a while. If you could get fresh vegetables where it was canned and maybe even learning how to can, they
Mhm.
could probably even do a class. You guys could probably even do a class on canning. That right there is a lost art.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a lost art. And the canning process, it may not seem, yeah, we can get out there on YouTube and there's probably some things out there, but something that you could can yourself and know, because I kind of see this going in a direction to where if it's not if I don't have access to a grocery store, I'm in trouble. That's just me. My mindset, I'm just in trouble. I don't know how to can. As far as a garden, I have put my some effort into maybe coming up with some bucket gardens, and we'll when you come back, which I hope you will, when you come back, we'll get a chance to do some updates and maybe share about how to go about doing a bucket garden, or someone for young people to do that. But that's kind of the reality of where I am, and I know many people that are like me. People that, what do? We sit in front of a computer all day, or we have businesses that we run, and whatever we're doing. Uh, in working, and not really you don't really have time to work and do some of those things in life that would be rewarding, and if you're in a bad way, right? I don't know uh, how this world looks to most people, but it doesn't look like it's coming along too well right now.
Well,
And
honestly, you have a workforce that's working physically less, but is stressed out more than ever, and
mm,
that goes back to the stress is bad for your entire body. That can cause cancer,
mm,
causes all kinds of illness. You got high blood pressure, and we go back to the bad foods. You gain weight. It
mm,
just all goes into this giant ball. Like it causes all kinds of crazy problems, and
mhm,
it's just unfortunate that there's always a pill for that, And but in reality, if we just took the time to take care of ourselves, your body can generally help itself.
mhm, mhm. It definitely can. Now, not only can the body take care of itself and help itself by eating organically, the organic fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh vegetables. I'm hearing fruits and all that too, but getting out there in the garden. I know that when I do work with my bucket gardens, because I live in a small place, when I do get a chance to go out there and take care of the little vegetables that I do grow, it's just good, healthy exercise too. Huh? So, people, if you're thinking that gardening is boring, gar- volunteering and getting in the dirt, I beg to differ, because I bet if we had some shout outs, someone put some comments in there. Did anyone make a mud pie when they were a kid? Huh? Who played in the
Yes.
dirt when they were kids,
Yeah.
right? And I think that it kind of comes natural in that, you know, who picked flowers and dandelions and, got dirt under your fingernails, and you played and sweated outside until the street light came on,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I think that's just kind of part of life in itself, is that if we can go back to when we were young and understand that it's just part of life. Who my grandkids love I have a 2-year-old granddaughter that I get a chance to hang out with on a regular, and that door opens and she's outside, enjoying the weather. And definitely that can be something that you'll enjoy too, taking a volunteer effort to support Food for the Cure. Food for the Cure. Yeah. And of course, just to let everyone know who's just now jumping on, Food for the Cure grows organic vegetables, organic food for uh, patients, people that have cancer. And they support and they pick and deliver that fresh food to people that have cancer. And they have some great short term goals here that we know if we can, God can make that happen. And it can easy. That's an easy thing. That's a light thing, that building into grow to get more volunteers to roll up their sleeves to make it happen. Yeah, for sure. I can just chat, and talk your ears off. I can do it. I can do it. But it's I'm gonna ask you to come back if you will, guys.
Oh,
Okay,
And
we will. It's such a nice program, and it's been good. It's been nice.
thank you, thank you. And just definitely come back and just if there's anything that we can do, because we're going to get a team to be out there. We'd like to get some pictures and bring our few tools that we have in the garage. I have some tools in the garage I can bring with me, and we'll bring a crew over and start getting some things going with that. So getting that garden going. So and I'm on the list. I think I signed up. My name.
I'd have to look at my email.
Okay, well, that's okay. I'll fill out another form and make sure. I believe I am, but I'll do it again just to make sure. And you guys, I really do appreciate you guys. Just hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. All right. And thank you guys for joining today. Don't forget to share or subscribe or like the links. But most of all, do your best to see if you can do some volunteer work. 501c3s, volunteer work and nonprofit doesn't mean that there's no profit required. We need the sweat equity, and we need the donated resources, the finances to continue to grow. And this organization is a great one to keep in mind when you're looking to do some donating. Food for the Cure, www.foodforthecure.org. And as I always say, take care. And as I always say, if the Lord says the same, we'll see you next time.
Just in town.
Justice now.